Hey, it's me, and they got me now doing some green stuff because let me tell you what I found out is that I can compost. I am one of your, probably y'all, some of you out there, if you're sitting at your computer and you've been thinking about being able to compost and live green, and you've got a yard and you think, oh gosh, how do I do it? These guys are going to tell you how. And it's very simple. I mean, like, there's so much stuff that we have to go over with, and I'm so happy to have them. So today I'm going to be talking to Robert Olivier. He corrected me. I'm bad on names today, but Robert Olivier and Karl Warkomski. And they are owners of Compost Mania. And that is an online compostmania.com, and they've got hundreds of different products that they use and choices you can make when you're looking at doing this with your yard. So I want to welcome them to the show. Thank you, Karl, and thank you, Robert, for coming in today.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Oh, yes, and if you have any questions for them, you can tweet us at #CelebrityU, #CelebrityU, because, you know, they've got lots of things to cover here. First off, I wanted to ask, Karl he doesn't live here in Dallas like you do, but he's made a special trip down here, not just to be with us, but to do business, and we got to catch up with him. And he is the compost. We were talking about composting, and he knows everything about it. He calls himself the lazy composter. So, you know, I liked that. I can identify with it. So I want you to tell me, what first got you interested, though, in this? I mean, totally got you into this business.
Back in 1994, and first of all, Kathy, thank you for the invitation to your show.
Oh, yeah.
Really honored to be here. Back in 1994, I got a compost bin as a gift, and it was one that doesn't even exist today, but when I found out how easy it was to take your food scraps and yard clippings and turn them into black gold, and how much it actually thrives on neglect, I was hooked.
Yeah.
I'm very frugal by nature, and when I found out that there was a way to make soil without really any cost inputs,
yeah,
I was sold.
Yeah, I told you about having to go to Home Depot every spring and buying the potting soil.
Yep.
This totally I don't have to do. And Jeff, my husband's here, and we're gonna about to have a lovely yard. So that's how you got into it. It was a gift. So these do make good gifts, and it's Christmas time, and boy, you deliver on the from there. So let's talk about what. I want to talk about first. We can get them if people think that even if they've got so many products, but one of them is, and do you have a picture of it? Can we talk about the potato thing? They've got something called the potato. What is it called?
It's potato sack.
Potato sack. And this, tell me about
Potato
this
sack. It's
Sack.
potato. It's a smart pot.
Yes.
What it is basically a container that prevents you from having to dig a monster hole to grow potatoes at home. You basically put some dirt in the bottom, throw a couple potato sets in, maybe 3 or 4, and then put some leaf mulch and other type of compost that you have from your yard, and in about 10 weeks, you got quite a bit of potatoes. You just got to give it a little bit of water. They don't really require a nutritious soil. But the beauty of potatoes is all you need are a few little potatoes to get a lot more potatoes. And not a lot of people know that. It's one of the easiest foods you can grow. It doesn't like a lot of heat, so you want to start early in the season or do it late in the fall. You don't want to do it in the
Now
mid-heat.
it's perfect, isn't it?
You would have had to start a little bit earlier,
Okay.
but next year, definitely.
Okay.
And early spring.
Okay, and and it's portable. You can see that but see, this is what I'm talking about. This is as easy as it can get, and even then, you don't even have to have the compost from your leaves and your things that you're doing. Now, you're going to tell us then besides saving the money and having your own mud and stuff like that, as I call it, why we're all into green, but what's the other benefits of composting?
Well, there's actually quite a few, and depending on where you are in your life, you can connect to a certain advantage for composting. First of all, it's a great way to divert waste from the landfills. You can basically throw all of your organic scraps, whether it's shredded paper from the office, paper towels, and food scraps from the kitchen, and all of your grass clippings and leaf waste and shrub trimmings from the garden can all go in the compost pile, and depending on the type of material that you're adding, you will get compost between 3 to 6 months. And it's not as voluminous as the amount of material you threw in, but you will still get a sizable amount when you compare to the costs at the store. So.
And because we talked about if you did, people do just from eating food, that their waste from that is 2 pounds a day per person. So you could end up with 140 pounds of compost.
Just at the end of 1 year, just on food scraps alone. So there is an enormous opportunity to divert waste from the landfills, but also to divert waste from the municipal water treatment facilities. A lot of people throw food scraps down their incinerator and they think it's out of sight, out of mind. That is an enormous burden on our waterways because it contributes to eutrophication of water and over nutrient load on our streams and creeks, and that causes algae blooms that nobody wants to smell. It eliminates the biodiversity of lakes, and it eliminates things like frogs and fish, and nobody wants that. And so, you can easily take that particular component out of the waste stream and put it in your backyard and transform it into something useful and remove your impact from the environment.
Okay.
So I have a question. Like, what are the top 10, I guess, mistakes that you can make when you're composting? Like, are there things you're not supposed to throw in it, or is there anything that's just...
There are a few things that
what can go wrong?
Would not recommend in a compost. One is you never want to put it in an area that's going to pool water, because if you've ever had any type of organic material just sit in water, it doesn't tend to smell nice after a couple of weeks. So it always has to be on ground that's going to drain. In regards to throwing things in, it needs to be biodegradable. You can't go putting styrofoam in or polyester sweaters because they're just going to stay in the pile. They're not going to really decompose. And I would also probably not put things like hard mammal bones in there. Chicken bones, fish bones, they're going to disappear over time, but the mammal bones are going to stay in there, and why put in something that you're going to have to move later?
I guess that's one thing I didn't know. So you can put like meat scraps in there.
A lot of people don't recommend doing that because they are assuming that people have compost bins that are open top or have large holes that could introduce rodents. But if you have a self-contained unit that really doesn't have a lot of openings that raccoons or vermin could get in, you can compost them. They're going to break down.
I think you've got a picture of one. It's a big round globe. It's called, what is that one called?
That's just a generic UV stabilized plastic compost bin, and I put it in there because it's sort of indicative of most bins, and there it is right on the screen. Has a nice lid and a door to harvest your finished compost, but as you can tell, not a lot of critters are going to get in there.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. My friend that composts her dog got into the pile, and she had put stuff in there. So and so you can put your food waste, but they've got another product that's really neat. Because that maybe you're gotten through eating. Who wants to go out to the compost pile? They've got something called a freezer. Tell us about that product.
We do. We have a compost freezer bin, which is a real nifty item that comes in from British Columbia. And it's debuted on our site. Will be available beginning of November. And what it is, instead of collecting all your food scrap in your kitchen sink and having the fruit flies appear and leaving it there unsightly for your dinner guests to see, this eliminates that. You basically take all your food scraps, throw it in there, and put it in your freezer until you're ready to dump it into your compost bin or worm bin. And by freezing foods with water inside them, the water expands when it freezes, just like your ice cubes get bigger when they freeze. That breaks up a lot of the cell walls in the matrix of food, and so you're sort of getting it ready to be pre-digested by all the beneficial microbes in your compost bin. So it's not only great at keeping out food scraps from your sink, it's great at helping it sort of start out quicker.
So this bin just goes directly into the freezer with the food scraps in it, and then it freezes, and then you take that out to your
Yeah,
composter.
it's
and
basically
drop
one
it
of
in.
that silicone
Wow.
units that you can
Very
just
cool.
turn upside down and pop it out with your finger.
Wow.
Yeah, because I could see because that you would have to keep it separate, keep the food on that plate until
No,
we
when
can get it up
I'm
there.
cooking in the kitchen,
Yeah.
I tend to cook more than the wifey cooks, but I always take my food scraps and I put them in one place, and so then I always sit them there, and I was like, well, you can't put that there, and I'm the lazy person that says, okay, I need to compost, I want to compost, because here I am putting all this stuff right here, so why not do it? And
Yeah.
how often, and I've looked at different composting units and things, and so what is it that I'm looking for if I want to compost, and I'm just an average rookie person?
You want to look for a unit that's going to make you happy. We have so many different products out there with a diversity from aesthetics, from color, what's going to match with your landscaping, what is going to be appropriate for your waste stream. People who have voluminous amount of yard waste really should go with a big unit. People who just have food scraps can really look for a small self-contained unit. If you have a small backyard, you look for something that has a small footprint and taller.
Is there anything with the kind that tumble?
We have a lot of tumblers. Tumblers are great because they increase the speed of decomposition about 15 to 20%. They lend themselves to soft wastes like food scraps and perhaps leaves, and they are not too enormous, so you can't go putting 7 or 8 bushels of grass clippings in there, but you're going to be able to do a lot of your soft waste very quickly. And it's a little bit easier because the harvest can be
Yeah.
a little bit more streamlined.
Looks like it's about to fly into outer space. So I've talked to so many
Kids
people
love them.
who compost and they buy it and they're like, I'm so lazy, I don't even flip it over. I don't even go out there and
You
tumble
really
it
just
over.
need to tumble it twice a week.
So talking about the after product, and let's say you want to use the fertilizers and things, how would you extract then your fertilizers, or how do you know when your compost is ready to use as a fertilizer?
Great question. When you can identify the majority of materials inside the tumbler or inside the compost bin, you know it's ready. Now, the good thing is, let's say you open it up and the majority of it looks like regular topsoil, but there's maybe a few pieces of something in there that still looks like food. Just, take them out aside, dump the rest in your garden, and throw the stuff that's not completely finished back in, and it'll decompose your next batch. The great thing is you can have several compost bins with different ages of compost. So you fill one up, you let it cook a couple months, and while that's going, you're filling up the second one. And by the time you fill up the second one, the first one's ready to harvest. You just go back and forth, back and forth. You have a continuous stream.
Now, you also promote kind of introducing worms or other things to the compost to decompose it faster. Is that right? Is that something that you guys do, or?
We do. We have worm bins. We
do
have
have a
several,
video
of
about a dozen different
Yeah,
varieties
and
of
we're
worm bins.
we don't want to forget that we want to talk about that. We're going to lengthen the segment a little bit because I told you we had a lot to cover. So we're going to and we do have the time, thank God, to do it. But he also, when he said the separate, we talked a lot about the doggy poo, because we have a dog, we have our yard, and people have to clean that up, and they have you don't want to mix that with your regular compost. That you don't want to do, but it makes a great fertilizer for your ornamentals and other things, and so you can take that from your dog, and they have a special bin, the doggy bin, and either go in the ground, or you have to do it in the ground, don't you? Or you have two types, but
There are many ways to decompose and biodegrade pet waste.
Yes.
You can do it underground, so the only thing sticking out is a lid. That entire unit that you see on your screen is actually buried. The only thing is a foot-operated lid that sticks out. So it's like a mini septic tank, and you just simply dump the pet poop in, and it decomposes naturally.
yeah, but you're not wanting to reuse it when it's like that, because I can't see you sticking your hand down there to get it out.
There's not much left because
Oh.
the bacteria do a really good job at transforming it to water, carbon dioxide, and other materials. It really gets absorbed by the soil. There is so little residual left.
Wow, and you say that's usually good for maybe two dogs, but like I have 5. Yeah, so we talked about actually converting it, and there's another one in there.
We don't have it on the screen.
Yeah.
What I tell people to do is just get multiples based on the number of dogs they have, and there's always dogs visiting dogs, like kids come over to your house and visit. So I always tell people to scale up. So I would recommend 3 of those, and you just put them next to each other. And when one fills, you let it decompose a little bit much over the couple months. You really don't have to empty it more than once every 2 or 3 years because, like I said, it doesn't build up to significant levels. But you take the residue that's down at the bottom out with the shovel, and you just put it in your ornamentals.
Yes.
And again, a frugal way to fertilize.